Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. For those familiar or new to the podcast, I'm Sarah. And just in case you didn't hear, I'll make this final announcement. Moving forward for a while, the podcast is going to be hosted by just me. We're getting into conference season. Brandon is off making all the conferences we're joining in on go over smoothly. So if you plan on going to any conferences in the upcoming months, you're probably going to see Brandon. So tell him hi. All right, so for this episode today, we have Nicole Baqai, Senior Strategic Partnerships Manager at Gorgias. Gorgias offers a full suite of customer service solutions for e-commerce entrepreneurs. And today, Nicole is going to go over how to create a winning customer service strategy that translates to more sales and greater ROI. She explains how DTC e-commerce is closely linked to a strong customer service relationship and walks you through how to optimize, automate, and personalize your customer communication. If you're ever wondering how you could turn customer service into your greatest asset, you won't want to miss out on this episode. So I don't want to give away too much just yet. Let's make sure to dig into the interview and see what Nicole has to share. And then stay tuned at the end of the episode where I'll provide some extra insight by answering some common questions online business builders have. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. So today we're really excited to have on Nicole Baqai, Senior Strategic Partnerships Manager at Gorgias. So Nicole, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great. Happy it's Friday. So super excited to hang in the beautiful New York summer this weekend.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I keep forgetting it's Friday. It's like one of those Fridays it doesn't feel like it, but I'm hoping in a couple hours it like kicks in.
Yeah, Fridays are always my busiest days for some reason.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to do like siphon out time in my schedule on Fridays and it still doesn't happen. You get to Friday and you're like, wait, I still have a million things to do. I don't know how this works, but okay, here we are. Well, cool. So it's so great to have you on. Great to hear that you're enjoying your New York summer. Let's kick things off and get to know you a little bit better because obviously not everyone here knows you. So tell me a little bit about your journey in the e-commerce space and what it looks like today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for having me. I joined Gorgias about a year ago. So I run the business development for the East Coast. And prior to that, I was actually at a startup that was reimagining the mini bar and gift shop at hotels. It was super fun. I got to work with a plethora of D2C brands. And, I was in LA actually. So that job is what brought me there and kind of always had this idea that I wanted to be in entrepreneurship. I minored in entrepreneurship at USC. I took a bunch of those classes. They always stuck with me because I felt like we were actually applying real life businesses and coming up with businesses that we wanted to launch ourselves. And that's kind of how my entrepreneurial journey started. And after the initial startup before Gorgias, COVID happened, so no one was traveling. I moved to Gorgias, kind of asked my network first where I should work. And they were all like, you should check out this tool called Gorgias, the perfect alignment between D2C and technology. And that's exactly what I did. And so through that network, now I'm here and I couldn't be happier because it's just been such an amazing journey given the pandemic and everyone moving online. It really accelerated growth for us and was kind of insane just how quickly we expanded.
Yes, I can definitely echo that sentiment. It's been a wild time for empire flippers as well. And I think it's like when your business is in this kind of, I know it sounds amorphous, but the online business space. So obviously you're with e-com and we're dealing with a lot of monetizations. The COVID year has been nuts. Growth has been insane and sometimes it's difficult to keep up, but it's so exciting at the same time. I love that you come to the table with a background in entrepreneurship and you study that in school and you've been kind of in and around the space. I was curious, what do you find about working with DTC businesses that just really resonates with you and kind of gets you out of bed every morning?
Yeah, I think D2C for me, I'm a huge consumer. I think it's fun working with brands and D2C brands, especially that, you purchase every day that you need every day. And my bank account might not agree, but I really do think there's so much possibility when it comes to product and innovation and branding. And there's so much personality behind D2C specifically right now. And, we work closely with the Shopify team as well, Magento and BigCommerce too. And we just see that D2C has really taken off. You don't need to have a physical storefront. And people are now at the comfort of their own homes. And with the touch of a button, they can purchase whatever they need for their home or in general. And I just think, watching that grow, I'm excited to see kind of where it's heading. And I also have a lot of friends that are D2C founders. So I'm kind of like in that community and really love that other founders help each other and allow each other to take the best tips to grow their businesses as well.
That's awesome. I mean, you kind of hinted on this earlier, but I think it's worth setting the scene here for people who are not familiar with DTC and kind of what's going on in the industry. So can you paint me a picture of what the DTC industry looks like today and what's the level of growth happening in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, as we kind of saw with our numbers, right? The amount of people that moved online was insane. We had a 3x increase in the number of customers we had at Gorgias. So we went from 2,000 customers to 6,000 customers. So we tripled in the last year. So we actually just see that you can pretty much start anything. You wake up tomorrow, you want to start a new toilet paper brand. Shopify is plug and play. It allows you to do that. You can see that people are now, taking a new angle to actually brand their products. For example, if it's a protein bar, if it's a shower head, there's like a totally different way that people are marketing themselves. And I think the landscape is changing because people want to connect with brands. They want to connect with the personality behind the brands. And I think that's really what's been created. I also saw a lot of like Gen Z, millennial kind of branding, the fun pop of color is kind of coming back. TikTok has obviously taken off and I think influenced a lot of like the landscape of what people are looking for when they're creating brands. But regardless, I just think, everyone is moving online. There's trying to capture the eyeballs across now. Social media has been like a huge influence, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. There's just so much that you can do from an online standpoint.
As you talk about that, this question just came to mind, and you talk about going 2,000 customers, I think you said, to 6,000. And like, that's a big jump. That's a lot of growth happening at once. And as you rightly pointed out, there are so many different shifts in the space in terms of branding and personality. And I wonder, how do you guys do that when you have like 6,000 customers and all these different businesses and they've all got a different way of like doing things? I guess, how do you meet businesses where they are, despite the fact that they'll be very different from the next business you're working on?
Say it again. So how do we meet businesses where they are? In what sense?
Yeah, I guess it's like, obviously this kind of ties into, you have to help them on like their customer service, for example. But customer service, does that kind of like look the same more or less across the board between 6,000 brands? Or are you kind of having to create like bespoke solutions for each and every one of them?
I mean, our solution is definitely very plug and play, but I will say every brand has their own personality, right? So the idea behind Gorgias, and I don't know if everyone listening knows what Gorgias is, we are an e-commerce help desk. We aggregate all your support in one place. So email, chat, Facebook, phone, Instagram. And there are brands that are only phones, right? Or only use the channel phone. For example, my mom, she's a caller, right? She's not going to be chatting in. She's not going to be texting. She's really focused on the phone channel when it comes to customer service. Now, maybe the newer generations are more about texting. I'm definitely a texter. I don't even want to get on the phone with anyone. I like chatting. It's more of an instantaneous communication, those one-on-one conversations that you have with the brand. And so we do see that totally shifting. And it's entirely different for each brand, right? So the different channels, but also the way that they're conversing with you. Maybe they use emojis. What our tool allows you to do is really personalize that and allow that to scale. So when it comes to 2,000 versus 6,000 brands, we have support that helps them, personalize it. We help onboard them. But from the most part, the brand is really the driver in the sense of they're figuring out how they want to communicate with customers, what they're offering to customers. If someone has a bad experience, how to turn that into a good one. And we definitely have webinars where we teach on best practices, but every brand is different and has their own style. So it's definitely fun to see how they think about customer service, because it's not just email, chat, phone. It's now become Instagram comments, Facebook comments, customer support is everywhere.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like probably a lot of people don't think about the comments on their social media being a place of customer support, right? They're thinking about it, it's just like some pure marketing play. And clearly there's more to that. So I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. I was wondering, let's set the scene of, what are the biggest pain points for DTC entrepreneurs when it comes to running their own customer service?
Yeah. So great question. What I love about this is we actually partner with a few different outsourcing agencies. So if the brand doesn't want to keep it in-house, they actually have the option to partner with one of our agencies that allows them to do the customer service for them. And so it's still, they keep the brand. It's less of an in-house hire, but really like what these agencies can do is they can mimic the brand. They know exactly what they're doing. They know the tool Gorgias, for example, they're very well versed in it. And so it actually allows them to be able to offload that to someone else and let them handle the customer service however they want them to. So in-house, I think the biggest drawback, I think, with doing it in-house, actually, there's no drawback. If you want to hire in-house, that's great. I think it's awesome because a lot of people undervalue the power of customer service and just how much of a driving tool it is across retention and conversion, right? Because your customer service, if you have bad customer service, you're probably going to lose out on that customer. You won't get that repeat customer, but it's also beautiful because you can convert a lot of different customers. So I think figuring out what are your policies, right? If you have a damaged item, are you sending a replacement for free? Are you saying, oops, too bad, right? Obviously now, and you would hope you don't come across a brand like that. But I think there's more flexibility when it comes to customer service and how can you create amazing customer service that not only is going to make that a repeat customer, but that customer is going to spiral and tell all their friends how amazing that experience was, right? So I think the biggest struggle is figuring out one, what are your policies? How do we benchmark against competitors? And then two, how do I manage this? And I think founders just starting out, they're probably doing a lot of customer service when really they have the least time and it's entire channel of its own. It's a growth channel of its own. And so I think that becomes a challenge is when I meet founders and like, oh yeah, I'm handling it out of Gmail. I'm like, well, that's going to break eventually, right? And so, figuring out how you can scale that or relying on outsourcing tools or outsourcing agencies that actually will do the support for you, I think are good ways to think about it.
Okay. Well, you might have answered one of my next questions in a way, but, worth kind of digging into it just in case there's anything else. So you're talking about like founders spending way too much time in the place of doing their customer service when they have the least amount of time and they might not always have the benchmarks in place. Is there anything else that online entrepreneurs get wrong about managing their customer service?
One thing that I hear a lot, like as I mentioned, of course, like, oh, we're on Gmail, we don't need a tool yet, or we don't even think about customer service first. We just kind of get through the tickets. Customer service is so crucial to your business, right? Because if you can retain that one customer for the rest of your life, that is going to be way more value than just acquiring one or two that are not that loyal, that might return, for example. And for us, we are an automation tool. We have automation and machine learning. So you can really prioritize and segment your tickets. And oftentimes I see brands just getting to tickets based on, timestamp. But if you have someone super urgent that is like, I want to cancel my order now, how are you going to identify that customer if you just have Gmail, right? So what we can do is we can tag that ticket as an urgent ticket and you can get to that before you actually fulfill it. Because when you fulfill it, now you actually have to pay for the return. You have to restock the item. So it's way easier to actually cancel that order before it's even been fulfilled versus how you were doing it in the past, which is just going by timestamp. Again, there's a lot of benefits to using specific tools to help you work smarter and not necessarily harder and eliminate a lot of those repetitive inquiries or those more urgent matters first.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm sure there's so many business owners out there who they think about customer service and they're not really thinking about, I think it's maybe more basic level of like, okay, there will be issues. I might get some emails and there's not really a system in place to figure out who's most pressing, where the fires are, where I'm about to lose someone, who could be someone that goes and leaves a bad review or, does something a bit more damaging than being upset about something small. So, that is so important because like you said, there's so much more at play with customer service than I think some entrepreneurs realize, and they need to focus and sort of put that together and make sure that they're not missing out. You guys, I love the way that you spell out on your site what the potential ROI is for great customer service. And I want to dig into that because I know there's so many different ways that this can come to life, but walk me through it. Like how could great customer service tie into more sales and greater ROI overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So I always like to think about this question in the shoes of the customer, right? Because we've all purchased from different vendors and different brands. And, when you're not getting that good customer service, like for example, I was on the phone with an airline a couple weeks ago and it was a nightmare getting a refund and they couldn't explain it to me. I had to jump through like a million hoops. I think the biggest win is what we allow you to do is we have all your order information in front of you. So the second that customer is writing in, you know exactly who they are, you know what they purchased, and all they have to do is type in their email and all the information pulls up. And if you can be like, oh, yep, here's your order, already canceled it for you. Here's a discount. It creates a really pleasant experience and actually makes you want to purchase again from that customer. The airline, I don't want to go back and purchase. So if you think about it from the shoes of the customer, of course, you're going to want to repurchase, and that inevitably drives that retention and conversion. Now, we do have a stat that says if you respond in 10 minutes, we actually did a study, the conversion rate is 28% higher. So response time is extremely, extremely important when it comes to retention and conversion, because if you're getting back to those customers in a quick, efficient manner, you're going to likely have those customers come back and likely they're going to purchase. And if you're waiting around, again, think about yourself as a customer and they haven't gotten back to you in an hour, you're probably not going to want to purchase from that site. You're not going to build that trust with that website. So again, the response time is super, super important to that conversion rate. And that 28% we got from customers who haven't purchased within 30 days or are entirely new customers. So we really can see that correlating. And we actually have revenue statistic as well in our tool that allows you to track the amount of revenue we've been driving based on customer service.
Okay. I really like the example that you just brought up there with the airlines. I think we can all put ourselves in your shoes, right? I think I'm with you there. Like I tried to get an airline refund recently and it's a nightmare. And at this point, I've just stopped calling because there is no easy way to get that customer service. Even though they deal with a lot of people, I think everyone's felt the pain of that this year and go, okay, you know what? I can see why this really matters right now. Collectively, we're all pretty mad at like all the major airlines.
Yes, seriously.
Yeah. In terms of like ROI, and we're talking about maybe getting a little bit more like granular here, what would you say, like which business functions have you seen the greatest returns when optimized? Where should sellers try to focus their optimization efforts?
Yeah, I think, the landscape has changed, especially with Amazon and 2-day shipping, free returns. I think those are always important, but how can you go that extra step? And I think what they need to focus on is response time. Like I mentioned, response time is super, super important. How can you get your response time down, right? Because we just saw that, 10 minutes, the conversion rate is higher by 28%. If you can get it under 2 minutes, your first response time. Now, what does that mean, right? That means that your conversion rate is 50% higher. And we've seen that across different brands. I had someone who actually came up to me at a conference recently and they were a customer and they're like, you have no idea, I'm fundraising right now. And Gorgias is like on my pitch deck about how much sales we've driven. And it was, a crazy number. I think it was like 60,000 in the last 3 months just through customer service. So I think one thing is just tracking your KPIs across customer service. Obviously, that's kind of what I would focus on because that's what we do day in, day out. But I think customer service is the business function that you can actually retain those customers. And, we spend so much time focusing on running ads and getting conversion for those ads and those ROAS, and Facebook is expensive, right? But how do you actually keep those customers, right? Is going to be driving engagement on the comments, for example. So if you're spending X amount on Facebook ads, how do you get the most ROAS for that? It's going to be responding to those inquiries, driving engagement on the post. People are commenting, get back and respond there. I say customer service, but I think customer service ties in a lot with marketing as well. Because, if you're running ads, who's responding to those tickets? Is it your social media team? Your social media team is probably the same as your customer service team in a sense, and they're just managing different functions. So that's where I would probably spend a lot of energy because we spend, like I said, so much time focusing on acquiring new customers when really focusing on like the LTV of one customer is extremely, if not more important.
Yeah, I love that you just brought that up because that was actually one element of what you guys do that really stuck out to me, just kind of breezing through some of your materials. And one thing that jumped out on the page was being able to create those responses on those posts and increasing your sales and ad effectiveness by the equivalent of 5% increase in ad spend. Like that's so powerful. I love that you just drew the relationship there because again, I do think that it's too easy to sometimes think about your business in kind of like silos and think that, okay, well, my ad spend is this, and I'm not really thinking about how that could tie over to my customer service team. But like you said, there is an overlap and there's opportunity. There's opportunity to create a synergy there if you're doing it the right way, which I'm sure you guys see every day.
Yeah, and I also think, your best marketing is going to be your customer service. The best word of mouth marketing is, oh, I had this great experience. I like to talk about Zappos, who, years ago was sending, if you asked about a specific shoe and they didn't have it, they would actually send you to the right website. And I think that's such a beautiful example of how set the benchmark for customer service, how people actually maybe contributed to how much they grew. When we think about customer experience, it is your biggest marketing tool, because if you have an amazing experience, you're going to share that with someone else. And that's the snowball effect.
Absolutely. That's a great example. So you hinted to this earlier when we were talking about, let's say certain people in the business working in customer service and they're not exactly the right person to do it, whether that's the CEO or let's say it's someone else who doesn't really have the bandwidth. I was wondering what advice you would give sellers looking to automate their business, even if they're struggling with that bandwidth or even the technical skills. What would you tell them that they could do to tackle such a critical piece of their business?
First and foremost is look into tools, because you might be doing so much and not realizing there's an efficient tool out there that can actually alleviate those repetitive inquiries that you're responding to, copying and pasting. You're going to different tabs, submitting a refund. You can do that within our tool, but not just our tool. There's an entire app store of different tools on Shopify, for example, that you can use to actually integrate into your business so that you're actually, like I mentioned earlier, working smarter and not necessarily harder, because now there's so much technology out there that allows you to scale in an easy manner. And it's very plug and play. While there might be an upfront cost, it'll save you so much time, and time is money. And so I think looking into those types of tools, we have relationships with so many different apps that we natively integrate, for example. So I think that's kind of first and foremost, is really just looking into the resources out there, not trying to do everything yourself, and figuring out how can I leverage these tools to really build a scalable model? Because if you're doing everything yourself, it's not scalable. So that would probably be the first step, is what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's great advice. You definitely try to recommend people to try to work less in your business and try to work on your business, right? And time is money, and you're so much better working on the strategy and scaling of your business versus the nuts and bolts of it. So absolutely, that's great advice. This ties into my next question, but let's talk about growth opportunities, because one of the initial reasons that we started this podcast was to talk about all the hidden growth opportunities available in the space. And obviously, it's great to have you on to really talk about DTC ecom and where you see things going. So what in your mind is the best hidden growth opportunity within DTC e-commerce today?
Yeah, I think leveraging social media is a huge play. And I know everyone says that they're on social media, but I think there's so much to be done there. We're getting asked constantly about Twitter integrations, TikTok integrations. And I think, figuring out where does your brand lie across that is an amazing opportunity. We are also getting requests for video customer support. We just launched our own phone system. So figuring out what are people asking for and how do you maintain that personalization, especially because we are continuing to drive down this online world. How do you engage with your customers, not just on one channel, but really create an omni-channel experience? And so, yeah, when it comes to kind of where the future is going, I think it's just going to become more omni-channel. You're not just going to be engaging with your customers on one channel. It's going to be multiple. And the nice thing is you can actually identify who that customer is. If they're writing in on Instagram, oh, they also emailed here. Now we can see that's the same customer versus just blindly responding to multiple customers. So an omni-channel experience, being active on more channels than one, could really open up, your conversion and retention, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's great insight. I think it's really interesting to hear you talk about sort of the growth of all these different social media platforms, TikTok, things like that. We always talk to different entrepreneurs who are kind of in their own place in their journey with their business. And sometimes social media is a really big part of what they're doing. And for other businesses that we work with, it's not. But I think there are a lot of businesses who look at emerging platforms and thinking of an omni-channel strategy, and it feels a little bit overwhelming. Like, is it right for me to get on TikTok? Is it right for me to go after YouTube? Like, how can I make that an effective part of my strategy? But I love how you've laid out in this whole interview that no matter where you're operating, those are still places to really deliver on customer experience, win them over, create people that become brand advocates at the end of the day based on how you treat them where you meet them. So yeah, I think it's really powerful to have you come on and share that experience.
Yeah, and we also work with a lot of Amazon sellers as well that are now moving more omni-channel and creating different stores on different platforms like Shopify, for example. And so we see that they're actually moving omni-channel too. And I think the more diverse you can get with your audience, the more you can tackle. And of course, it's important to stay, focused as well. But I do think we're moving towards, an omni-channel experience, and people are looking to purchase on different sites. And there's so much brand equity out there. And the way that they're doing that is building a brand first.
Absolutely. I think it's a great insight. Like, again, everybody out there listening, make sure that you're building that brand, especially when you're in spaces where, now this is a little bit more historically, but Amazon used to be less brand focused. Now in recent years, it's definitely very much brand focused, and you have to be forward thinking and innovative to be able to stay ahead. And it sounds like that everyone needs to probably think their strategy somewhat, but for the better. So this has been great, Nicole. It's been awesome to have you on and learn a bit more about your journey. We typically wrap up these interviews with a couple rapid fire questions, if that's okay.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Awesome. Okay. So first one, what is the one key thing you need to succeed in managing customer service well?
Again, going back to automation, I think that can save you a lot of time. If you're copying and pasting, and if you're not having that much efficiency, such as, like I mentioned earlier, that the where is my order question is probably the number one most asked question across every single brand. You can automate that really easily and say like, hey, here's your status update. It's heading here with love from the Gorgias team, for example, and then send a little emoji. And you never have to touch that ticket again. So again, using automation is going to be your best friend, as much as a lot of founders and think, oh, like it'll compromise on personalization. It won't. It'll make your life easier and now allow you to focus on the more urgent matters.
Okay, great. What tools or resources can help online business owners grow their business?
Yeah, I think for us specifically, looking into Gorgias, obviously, I think looking into a customer service tool is super key. We partner with apps like Klaviyo, Yotpo, looking into review tools, looking into marketing tools, and see how they all integrate with one another is going to be super beneficial to figure out how you can build your business with these types of apps and figure out, what's important for informing a consumer decision when they're purchasing and understanding who your consumer is. And so, yeah, those are some of the top apps that we work with specifically.
Awesome. And final question, what has been a funny moment that you've had while working as an online entrepreneur?
So, funny moment. I am based out of New York. My entire team is based out of Paris and San Francisco or Toronto. And I've been to probably 5 events this week, and everyone's like, you are literally everywhere. You don't sleep. And so they're like, yeah, you work from home, but really like New York is my office, the whole city, because I'm out and about all the time. And so now I've just met so many different founders, so many different e-commerce agencies that I work with, and I just keep seeing them, and they all think that I don't sleep at all and I'm just out and about all day. So it's really funny being part of this community and super, super special.
I love that. You wouldn't expect it from such a big place like New York, but I can totally see how it's like once you're in one community, you can't help but see them everywhere. So all of a sudden that big city becomes a small city in kind of like the best way possible, which is amazing. That's great that you're having that experience in New York.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a small knit community. And, even though there's so many different Shopify stores, so many different e-commerce stores out there, the world is actually smaller in New York specifically. Like I've met so many of the same brands and everyone just wants to be friends. And I realized, the pandemic made it hard, but now when we're seeing each other in person, again, like kind of customer experience of its own, right? You put a face to our tool, for example, and now they have a better affinity with us as well, because it's creating that personal relationship as well and building.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a great industry. Like I see a lot of, I guess, camaraderie, if I could say it, would be the right word, just amongst the space in online business. And it's easy to get to know people. And I think you made a good point where it's like the pandemic was tough, but everybody's kind of sticking together at the end of the day, which is cool. Everyone's kind of being a collective after that experience. So yeah, it's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today and giving me some of your time. It was so cool to finally meet you and being able to learn a little bit more about your story and everything that you do at Gorgias.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it, Sarah. And we do have an offer for all the listeners, if they're interested. We've shared a link, with the Empire Flippers team, and you can get your second and third month free with that referral. So super biggest discount that we really offer. And so, yeah, very excited. Or you can email me at nicole@gorgias.com. It's super easy. And yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome. We'll include that for our listeners. And thank you again. Hey everyone, now that we wrapped up the episode and learned about creating customer relationships for your e-commerce brand, I wanted to cover a common question about buying, running, and selling online businesses. So today's question, how can I find influencers for my brand? So as we all know, unless you live under a rock, influencer marketing has taken e-commerce brands and social media by storm. Here's a few tips that we've picked up along the way. Try to find micro-influencers. So influencers with hundreds or even tens of thousands of followers can sometimes be too big to work with if you're fairly new to influencer marketing. You can go even as small as a few thousand followers if the influencer really fits your product and niche and has good engagement. That leads me to my next point. Engagement is everything. So if they have lots of followers but little engagement, look elsewhere, especially since this could be a red flag for a fake influencer. Look for influencers that have fostered a genuine community. Even if the follower count is smaller, that community is what leads to authentic engagement. Finally, make sure you're on the right platform. If your target market is a bit more mature, let's say 25 to 34, maybe Instagram is likely your best bet. If your market is younger or your product is trendy, TikTok might be the best platform for you. Just make sure your influencer's platform matches your target market. All right, everyone. So that wraps up this week's episode of the Opportunity Podcast. Hopefully you've gained some valuable insight on the opportunities that digital acquisitions offer. Click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace to learn more about listings currently live on our platform. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave a review and subscribe to this podcast for more great content that'll be released soon. Thanks for tuning into the Opportunity Podcast. I'm looking forward to having you back next week to hear from your fellow entrepreneurs and online experts.